Hello, what's up? It's a Culture Detective here investigating your favorite TV shows. And today I'm going to be doing a TV show review on House of the Dragon Season 1. So, there we go, I finally watched it. It's been a long time since I have watched a live action TV show. And I started watching House of the Dragon, I think, at around late November and early December, but because of time constraints, I stopped watching it at around episode 4, after episode 4, and then, all that stuff, the end of December, and then January, and then finally, a few weeks ago, I watched House of the Dragons. I started watching it again from episode 5 onwards until episode 10. House of the Dragon, if you don't know this, is a spin off TV show of the legendary one and only Game of Thrones. The same way Better Call Saul was a spin off to Breaking Bad. And essentially, it is a prequel. It is a prequel to Game of Thrones, and it is about the Targaryen Civil War. It takes place, I actually don't know how far back it takes place. I think it was like a couple hundred years before the events of Game of Thrones, before the events of A Song of Ice and Fire, and it is a series created by Ryan Condal and George R.R. Martin himself under HBO. So yeah, if you're not caught up with Game of Thrones at all, you'll probably be super duper confused while watching this video. And even I myself am kind of confused when I started watching House of the Dragon again because it's been a while since Game of Thrones had ended. A lot of the characters, a lot of the houses, a lot of the location names, and whatever. I forgot some of them quite a bit, maybe. So I was also kind of confused when I started watching House of the Dragons. And I would also like to say that I didn't go into House of the Dragons with a lot of expectations, really. I thought it would just be another very mid, very okay TV show with a lot of shock twists and turns and deaths and explosions and nothing all that nuanced and clever, especially because the last couple of seasons of Game of Thrones, season 7 and 8, turned out to be quite garbage, especially season 8, which is, in my opinion, one of the most disappointing moments in television history. David Benioff and DB Wise really fucked up Game of Thrones, and I would totally understand why George R.R. Martin was ultra pissed. But anyways, Double D are not involved in this project at all. This time it is between Ryan Condal and George R.R. Martin, and it is adapted from Fire and Blood, which is a spin-off series of novels that's a spin-off to A Song of Ice and Fire, and adapted into House of the Dragon, which is about the Targaryen house. There is House Stark, which is a wolf. There is House Lannister, which is a lion. There's a Baratheon, which I think is a deer or something. And then I think that's all I know. Aaron is a bird, I think. Yeah, House Aaron was a bird. I don't know. I forgot. I genuinely forgot. But anyways, Targaryen is dragon. So House of the Dragon, Targaryen. And yeah, essentially this is about the Targaryen Civil War, which is about Rhaenyra Targaryen fights against Aegon Targaryen the second. Aegon the second. The second Aegon. And I probably should do a little research before doing this review, but this is probably a long time after Aegon has conquered Westeros. So there's this whole lore, which I love. There we have the First Men and the Forest People, and then Aegon Targaryen, and he is from the east side. He's from Valyria. He came to Westeros and conquered it the same way the French conquered the Celts in England. Normandy French. So it's sort of somewhere around that ballpark. But anyways, here is the story. First of all, the cinematography is a lot nicer in this show. I think the sets, the smokiness and the haziness of the sets actually make it feel a lot more updated. Another thing is this show is actually a bit more low budget than not a bit, actually a lot more low budget than Game of Thrones season 7 and 8, which is not saying a lot because it's still $20 million per episode. What the heck? That's still a lot. But because of that, a lot of the sets are tighter and there's a lot more natural, on location filming, and that gives the show a lot of naturalism that I really love. Let's talk about the music. It's great. Can't go wrong with Raman Djawadi. He did a great job in Game of Thrones. He did a great job in Westworld, and he did a great job here. There's a like a there are moments in the soundtrack and the score where it sounds overly dramatic and not very great, but then we have these motifs, these very sad, weepy strings, which I really love, and also the little group vocal chants, uh, uh, like these motifs really carry the show together. So I really like these scores. The performances are great. Paddy Considine did a fantastic job as Viserys, who is kind of maybe the main character of the show. And then we have Matt Smith, who plays Daemon Targaryen. And it's funny because apparently Paddy Considine turned down a role for Game of Thrones because it's fantasy, but for some reason he kind of changed his mind and decided to be on board for House of the Dragon. And also, the production is really fast. Apparently, principal photography and shooting started in April of 2021, and by August 2022, episode 1 is released. So you're telling me production and post-production all happened within 1 year and like 3 months? Oh, okay. Wow, that's kind of fast. So, yeah, that being said, let's talk about the story of the show itself. I think this is the first time in a long time where I'm actually watching a show, a long franchise, a huge franchise, where I pretty much know nothing going into it. Like when I watched Game of Thrones, I started watching it at around 2017 or 2016, and by then Game of Thrones was already up till season 6, and I already heard all kinds of spoilers. Oh yeah, this character dies. Oh yeah, that happens. Oh yeah, this character dies later. So I went into season 7 and 8 blindly, hoping that I would, be up to pace with the entire rest of the world. But as it turns out, season 7 and 8 are garbage. So this is the first time where I actually get to watch something like Game of Thrones with the rest of the world and basically not knowing anything. I made sure not to check any spoilers on YouTube. I made sure not to watch any reviews on YouTube. I made sure not to go to Reddit to see discussion about it. I made sure not to do any of that. And that's quite easy because after season 8, I was pretty much uninterested already. So for real, going into House of the Dragon, I didn't know any spoilers. I didn't know who would die. I have no idea. And that, I think, added to my experience a lot more. There are a lot of death scenes in House of the Dragon that made me go, oh, didn't see that coming. Damn. That being said, though, I think episodes 1 to 5 are kind of okay. They're kind of bland, really. It's kind of slow pace. It's not really interesting. And I think the main issue I have with the first half of season 1 is that there isn't a single character where I'm truly rooting for them. Viserys Targaryen is a nice guy who does nice things, but he's not exceptionally interesting as a character. Daemon Targaryen seems to be the unhinged, unstable psycho of the family, but he actually isn't. He actually isn't really that. He's a little crazy and a little hot-headed, but at the end of the day, he isn't really that interesting. The main character, Rhaenyra Targaryen, great performances, by the way, by the younger counterparts of Rhaenyra and Alicent Hightower. both of them are not that interesting as well. Rhaenyra is, she doesn't care for the royal life. She wants to go out, she wants to have fun and not be shackled by these rules. Okay, I've seen a million characters like that before. So yeah, there weren't a lot of interesting characters. There were some cool moments and cool scenes here and there, but it's not very interesting. Let's be honest here. But I'm not saying it's bad because I pretty much feel similar for Game of Thrones Season 1, albeit I do think Game of Thrones Season 1 is more entertaining, simply because I really rooted for Ned Stark. But yeah, I totally understand why it would be slow paced. It's all set up, it's all build up. And I also really respect that House of the Dragon is taking it slow. Instead of cramming all the scenes into one episode and making it feel like a jumbled mess that has no rhyme or reason, it really takes its time to build character, to build the location, to build the lore. And I appreciate it. And then we have the second half of House of the Dragon, which I love a lot more. We have episode 6, and right off the bat, there's a huge time jump. There's like a 10-year time jump, and I totally did not see that coming at all. I couldn't recognize a lot of the characters, and I was like, what the heck? Wait, are they... Oh, they're old now. Didn't see that coming. And again, time jumps are a really powerful tool if it's well used. It can be amazing. And I think that is a case for episode 6. A well-written time jump made me more invested because it made me feel the scale of the story. Oh, so this story is, it goes over very long time periods. It is ambitious, and now I'm feeling it. Now I'm interested. And then we have episode 7, Driftmark, which is very eventful. So much happens. There's a fight scene in the episode involving children, and it was insanely intense. I was like, fight scenes are already pretty violent, but fight scenes involving kids, come on, come on. So yeah, and the ending was pretty unexpected, and I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. Episode 8 is probably my favorite episode here. It is a family reunion episode where Rhaenyra, Alicent Hightower, Viserys, literally everyone all over the country comes back together at King's Landing and have dinner. But at this point in time, Rhaenyra is beefing with Alicent Hightower because, again, if you haven't watched the show, you'll probably be really confused. But Alicent Hightower became the queen, and Rhaenyra became the princess. But a Hightower isn't a Targaryen. So, Rhaenyra has claim to the Iron Throne, but then Hightower is also really ambitious, especially Alicent Hightower's dad, Otto Hightower, is really ambitious and made sure the Hightower gets the upper hand. So there's that's really the seed of the Civil War. So they all came back together, and instead of being the most uncomfortable dinner ever, it was actually really wholesome. We have Viserys being really bare and honest about his feelings, and the adults actually got along together. Alicent Hightower and Rhaenyra Targaryen, they actually got together and sort of buried the hatchet in a subtle way. But the real issue is, even though Rhaenyra and Alicent have buried the hatchet, their kids haven't, and they're not going to, because they didn't grow up together. Alicent and Rhaenyra grew up as friends, but their respective children never grew up together, they were never friends, and they actually for real hated each other, especially Alicent's children against Rhaenyra's children. So Alicent's children, Aegon II, Aemond, and Helena, let's leave Helena out of the question. Aegon and Aemond really hate Jacaerys and Lucerys. So that's where the real civil war lies. And yeah, also shout out to the makeup department for making Paddy Considine look more fucked up every single episode. He looks so disgustingly old by the end. It's actually impressive. Episode 9 shows a major turning point in the story, which feels really powerful. A lot of people complain that the ending scene is terrible writing, and sure, it does not feel like the most clever and nuanced and well thought out ending of all times, but it serves its purpose. I like that House of the Dragon ultimately feels less ambitious than Game of Thrones, so it doesn't really try to be super deep and complicated or anything. It just tries to be a cool fantasy show with character relationships and politics, and it just works out kind of like that. But yeah, it is a really good episode. And then episode 10 is where the Civil War actually began. The entire first 9 episodes, it's all build up. Episode 10 is where it truly began. Rhaenyra heard of the news, and Rhaenyra is gearing up for the war, and then Alicent Hightower is gearing up for the war, and then we have the final scene, which was really unexpected. I was totally rooting for a particular character because this character is one of the few actually good, kind-hearted characters in this show. I was rooting for him so bad, and then the final scene happened, and it's just, whoa, okay, now this war is actually happening now. Holy shit. So yeah, I enjoyed the second half of the show a lot, of the season a lot, and I'm really looking forward to House of the Dragon. I can, go on to Reddit and look at the discussions again. I can watch Alt History X super long videos again and be super fascinated, because after episode 10, I am all of a sudden interested in the lore and the history and the politics and the houses and the location. And that's what makes Game of Thrones so magical in the first place. It is the scale of the story, it is the depth of the lore that really make you go, wow, this is something else. So yeah, I'm giving House of the Dragon Season 1 a strong 7 out of 10. What are your thoughts? Comments below, let me know. Subscribe if you want more. Thanks for watching.